So, wishing a very warm welcome to Jen Pridgeon. Thank you so much for being with us today to talk about, what you do, which is support young families with digital well-being and help heal screen addiction with a product that you've created called Connection Hearts. And you're also an EFT practitioner who trained with yours truly and Peter. So it is absolutely fantastic to have you here. So can you just say a little bit more about Connection Hearts, what it is and how it helps?
So the Connection Heart, at the heart of it, is about heart connection with your child in this incident. Um, the actual hearts themselves, so behind me I've got the harmonizer, the cover on the TV, on my TV. The hearts are actually little kind of fabric pictures of the activities that probably like 99% of families would do in their home with their young children. So it's kind of aimed at sort of under sevens. Yeah, and they're kind of activities like let's cook, let's have a bath, let's go outside, let's chillax. And actually, when we were making them, so my daughter did the drawings, like similar to your, when we were making them, we wanted to do one that was like, let's watch a film, let's watch, because it's not about making that a bad thing. It's about the connection with your child, and then that helping prevent future, addiction or unhelpful habits, or yeah. So yeah, and at the heart of that is my daughter's creations, the drawing she made, Rose and Sam, who are friends, and they demonstrate the activities for the children. Yeah. So,
That
and there's
sounds
10 of them.
amazing.
Yeah.
And you know what really strikes me as being so helpful in that, because sometimes in the moment when, let's say, your child's like, watching TV or having too much screen time, it's very difficult to think in the moment of something really positive to do. But if you've got a whole list of different ideas there ready for you to take action on, that must be
Yeah.
really, really helpful.
Yeah, that's it. That's the kind of, and actually I've had families, sort of have that like ping moment where you think, oh right, I'm going to get the hearts. That's kind of the ideal thing, the kind of the what I would love as someone that was part of creating it. That's what I'd love to see, is having that moment. And things like EFT, that when I made them I realized, and I kind of knew anyway, that if you're going to be able to really be present with your child, you need to have things like EFT, meditation, healthy lifestyle, blah, 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 to support you then to be able to be fully able to see, the wonderment that is a child, especially your own child.
Yeah. Who
Yeah,
and our own children know how to press our buttons big time, right? So
yeah,
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 that's I can see where EFT comes from. So in a way, what you're saying is like EFT is the emotional component to really kind of help your. Oh my goodness, are you still there? Something's just come up on my.
I'm still
We
here.
are. Yeah.
Can you
Oh,
hear me?
phew. My computer, my computer just went a bit weird. Yeah. So EFT, just to help you calm emotionally, and obviously when we've got like
Yeah,
all the stresses going on, it's very, very difficult to think straight. But then when we can calm all of that down, we can think more clearly. But then
yeah,
also to have the practical tools, which is what which was what you're doing with your Connection Hearts, so that you've got all these ideas, so that even if you're not feeling, if you're still feeling frazzled, if you've
yeah,
got these Connection Hearts in front of you, you can still take action, even
yeah,
if, so it's good to have both the emotional support and then the practical thought suggestions of what to
yeah.
do.
Yeah, and potentially, ideally with the hearts,
Mm.
the child can go and get them. Like the dyes are like non-toxic; they can be washed. So it's kind of like the way we might reach for our phone to phone somebody to help us, or to listen to like music, they can reach for them, and it be like, well, this is what I want to do, or or they can throw them, or they can have something that they're allowed to access, that's like, well, what, I want to do this, but I'm angry as well, or I'm stressed, or I don't care, or it's kind of, yeah, like an inspiration for them to do drawing as well. I mean, it is kind of, my daughter would sit and just draw a lot, and that was kind of her, way of grounding, I guess, maybe, that she doesn't do so much now, possibly because she has a device to do it on, create on, which is fine.
Yeah.
Unless it becomes not fine. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank
I mean,
you.
I'm learning all, I'm still learning about this, and there's studies that are going on that are following, like hundreds of children, that are sort of seeing how that develops. Yeah. And I could carry on with that a lot, but yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of like feedback have you had from parents and children who've been using the connection hearts, if anything comes to mind?
Well, I think like the idea, because it's sort of, because the kind of ethos of it is not necessarily to stop, it's not really trying to control your screen time. It's more like, when you want to come off the screen, when you want to get them off, you have this to help you. And children get put down for naps a lot, right? Don't they? Like, that's the big thing. Like, one of the big kind of things for a parent is like, when they're sleeping, then I can sleep, or I can rest, or whatever. So them being able to put the cover on, and it's got like little sleepy eyes, is kind of empowering, a 1-year-old, say, to be able to put something else to sleep, not them. But that's like another, like, some parents wouldn't necessarily want to involve the actual device, but if the child, if they're able to, then that's like another kind of aspect of empowering, a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old, or yeah. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Brilliant. And like me, you're a mum, and you bought my book Frazzled to Fabulous in 5 minutes a day a short while ago, and you put some really lovely comments in the Facebook group about your progress. So I thought it'd be really nice to just ask you some questions about how it was for you, how you got on. And I'd say, first of all, what really motivated you to buy the book in the first place, other than maybe you were trying to support me? I don't know.
Well, to be honest, what it was, so I do something that is actually from another book, that I got ages ago, and it's to do with my finances. And I have something called financial freedom, which I practice. And when I thought of buying the book, it was like, this is something for me. And I thought, obviously, and better it be, my mentor, and someone who's a mum and who's raised a daughter as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of, yeah. And then I started doing it, and I'm still doing it. I'm on my second round of doing, the 5 minutes every morning. So I'm doing,
Amazing.
yeah. Yeah. So, and I already knew about the pictures, like your daughter doing the pictures, and it just kind of just clicked. Really, it was just obvious. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and I feel like it really, like I said to you earlier, it having something that's a book, because I do use my devices a lot, but having something that's a book just helps me kind of I don't know, it just feels it, it's like if you go swimming in a river, you're just like sort of encompassed in something that's possibly less more earthy. I don't know really what that means, but it feels nice to have that next to my bed and to do that tapping just a tiny bit. And I said, from what you sent me, it made me feel powerful, like really embodied. Um, and with each different like day, some things kind of click, some things were like, oh, I'll do that, that didn't quite click, or and I just kind of adjusted the scripts for myself, which obviously I would know to do that. um yeah, and the pictures as well, like that this picture, I put it on the group as well, the one where the mum's, that one.
Oh yeah. I love that one.
Yeah. um yeah.
But I think that's that's the key. I mean, I've got all these suggested scripts in there, but the beauty of
Yeah.
it is that if you don't resonate with that in the moment, you just adjust the script to
Yeah.
match what is going on for you. And then, but it's just kind of like ideas of what you can be tapping on a daily basis. But the
Yeah.
key is to be tapping on a daily basis, because I think that's the way that you chip away at the edges of whatever's going on for us, all our stress and overwhelm and
Yeah.
anxiety and whatever. That chipping away and making it a habit, so that then you can use it in times of stress, because
Yeah.
we're not going to start using something new necessarily when we're stressed, because
Exactly.
when we're
Yeah.
stressed we resort to whatever our default coping mechanisms are, which might be to panic or
Yeah.
to freeze. But if we've got this fantastic stress relief technique, then we can use that in tapping in stressful moments. And I
Yeah.
know I don't mention the finger points in the book, but I know that you know the finger points. But
Yeah.
see, if I notice myself getting stressed, my fingers will just automatically, they won't start tapping, but I'll just do some kind of touch and breathe in the background
Yeah.
to kind of like bring my energy down, and then I can start thinking about what needs to happen, if anything.
It's like something that's kind of automatic in the body, isn't it? I
Yeah,
know I kind of go like, I'll rummage my hair, or yeah, like, that's something. um yeah, so it's like something that we've already got that innate intelligence, and then using it to our benefit and our children's benefit. I mean, I when I was doing, like over the past 28 days or however longer now, um, I could feel like I go and get dressed or I'd brush my teeth and then I'd sit back in bed and it was like, oh yeah, I could feel that embodiment come in, and my phone would ring or my daughter would come in or not come in, or like something would shift, and just having that and whatever the script is then complementing, what I'm doing that day or what I want to do, or if I need to be clear what I want to do, usually.
yeah,
Um, it's really different, yeah, to what I mean. I'd just been doing it as a practitioner, which is quite different, really, than doing it from the parenting perspective. Um,
yes, I think
so
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And what if anything surprised you about going through the daily tapping things, scripts?
um, it's funny because it's sort of like with EFT and like maybe my own personal healing practice, it's almost like something that my loved ones, my friends, and maybe like my work colleagues or communities, it's like something that they all bounce off. So it's kind of like a protection, it'd be like, oh, can you stop doing that EFT? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna, you know, it's like it's like a way for me to communicate, um, my well-being, I guess. The way maybe like I can remember my mum saying like count to 10, and that being her kind of suggestion. I can remember one time I was in the car, my mum was on speakerphone and she was counting to 10, and I was driving, obviously, but I was like doing the EFT, even though, and it was like, yeah, we've all got our kind of, and Tanisha was doing, I can't remember, but she was doing something to try and manage her thing. And it's like a generational, I could see that was the EFT was my generation. Um, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And have you had any realizations from doing the daily tapping, either during the tapping or afterwards in your daily life at all?
Yeah, so I did I don't know if it was a realization, but it was something like I've had major kind of financial things going on. It feels like forever, but it's kind of, I feel like it came to like a point, and I was trying to sort of work out stuff relating to a job that I was being offered or going for, um, and that, yeah, and the EFT helped me with that. Um, Again, just giving me clarity before I had an interview, and that was during the first 20, when I first had the book. Um, yeah, so like 4 or 5 weeks ago or something. Yeah, I don't know if that's a realization, but it felt like it was sort of supporting that process. And the interview went amazing, apparently, and they offered me the role. So,
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Result.
Thanks, EFT. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I mean, EFT is very good for any kind of stress before
Mhm.
interviews or exams, as we know, it's just fantastic for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And are there any particular tapping scripts that stand out as being particularly helpful?
So the one, I mean, I'm kind of all the like the 28 days. Is it 28 days or am I just, it is
30.
28,
Well,
30.
the
Well,
first couple of days are like intro days, aren't they? So,
yeah, 30. Yeah, there's lots of different ones in there, but I did the tapping script for sending a child positive qualities. That one was
yeah,
like so simple. Simple is really good for me.
yeah.
Um, but like, yeah, and I've been using that one. I think I could remember that one and just sit and just change the child to anyone, including myself, that I need to you know, just send good vibes. Um, yeah, so that one. And that one's on page 239. So,
Oh, that's amazing. I know
yeah,
that's so beautiful, isn't it, to be able
yeah.
to do that? Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And have you noticed, like from doing the daily tapping, have you noticed any changes in the way that you parent or your child or your energy levels, or anyone else notice any changes? I know that people who've done it in the past have reported like period pains disappearing or migraines disappearing, or partners seeing how happy they are and saying, what have you been doing, and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that happens to everyone, but I just wondered if there's anything that you particularly have noticed.
I think it's just what I said before with my relating to my work,
Mm,
or relating to not my screen harmonizer work, although it all blends in. It's all kind of supporting each other,
yeah.
I would say. But then, like, particularly without going into kind of specifics, with my parenting, having the scripts, the daily kind of dose of it has helped me to just stay kind of clear, and to also send anything that I want to send, in relation to things that Tanisha's going through. Um, yeah, and other, you know, other friends, their kids, and them as well. You know, if you're, as a mum, if you're as clear as you can be, you can kind of take anything, can't you?
Yeah,
Sort of.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And does your daughter do any tapping at all? Have you introduced it to her, or?
I think I did. You know, I think we did some. I think it was during the 30-day, um, the 30-day tapping. Yeah, I did show her, but there was. I mean, this is, and like what I feel like it's a bit like she'll kind of get angry at me tapping, or not angry, but be like, "Oh, mum," which I think is more about, you know, the teenager thing, and not, or whatever, growing up, needing to be, you know, more independent. So that is kind of like relating to the EFT. Like I said, it's sort of, you know, it's like, oh yeah, that's mum's thing. And maybe she does do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is harder to introduce it to teenagers for sure. And what I love is, because a lot of people say to me when I tell them that I've written this book, they say to me, oh, I wish I had it when my kids are younger because they're now teenagers. And I say, actually, it's a book that mums of kids of any age can really benefit from, whatever. I've had grandmas read it and really benefit. So, you know, from little ones to primary school children to teenagers to, you know, mums of adult children as well. Because once you're a mum, always a mum, right? You know, you
Yeah.
never stop being a mum. And although the challenges change, there are always challenges there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes. So we were going to do some tapping today. So those of you watching, I hope that you join in. And what we thought of to do is tapping for mums of teenagers on this occasion, and particularly around feelings around teens and school, and the stresses that come up as a mum in that situation when the teens maybe are challenged at school or having difficulties in some way. So what I know as a mum, Jen, you know, you've probably experienced some things in that direction, but thinking about mums of teenagers in general, I mean, drawing on your own personal experience if you want to, or
Yeah.
just generally, what kind of things do you think mums have, you know, mums experience with teenagers who perhaps are struggling in some way, and school?
Maybe frustration, I would say.
Frustration, yeah.
Yeah.
And perhaps like anxiety, particularly if you know, this, if they're anxiety about the students around exams. I know that's quite a big topic as well when it comes to exam time and
Yeah. I
how the
mean,
kids
Tanisha's
cope.
in year 9, and she's already sort of, there is this awareness that exams that mean something are coming soon. So it's like preparing that. I mean, she's 13. So yeah, like
Yeah,
imminent exam stress.
yes, yeah. So frustration around. Is there anything you want to say about the frustration, or
No, it's almost like necessary, I would feel, for someone to go from being a young or a child to being a teenager to then being an adult. I don't know. Yeah.
so it's kind of like what you're saying is that they have to go through a process in order to move from child to teen, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that process can be difficult to manage, and therefore there's frustration around that. Is
Yeah,
that it? Is that, yeah, yeah,
definitely.
yeah. So maybe maybe I don't know. Is it kind of like, maybe we do touch upon the idea of going from a child to a maiden, that rite of passage.
Yeah, like coming of age.
Coming of age, yes, coming of age.
And then also like where that puts you as a mum as well. And that change in relationship to kind of, well, what are we now, sort of thing.
Yes.
For both the child / teenager to the mum or the dad.
Yeah, that's so true. And also when it comes to the coming of age and the rite of passage, the transition from girl to maiden, as it were, it's like, it also then, what can come up is like how that transition was for the mum as she was growing up, and if that was like an easy transition, that's fine. If there were challenges around that, then it's much easier to resolve that first before then coming into supporting your own daughter in moving through that transition. So it can bring up a lot of emotion for the mum moving through that transition, like supporting her daughter moving through that transition as well. So so just now tuning into so this is going to be, I guess, since we've gone down this direction, we hadn't planned to do this as such, but I think this feels relevant now that we've brought it up. If that's okay, is that okay with you, Jen?
Definitely.
Yeah. So thinking about your own, and you, Jen, are just going to be my echo. So for everyone watching, but you can also think about what, how it was for you. So thinking about your own rite of passage into maidenhood as a child. And what I'd like you to do is just think about the well-being scale. So the well-being scale goes from -10 through 0 to +10. So +10 is feeling fantastic, 0 is feeling quite neutral, and -10 is feeling like the worst. So when you think of your own personal transition from girl to maiden, where would you put that transition, that experience, on that well-being scale, -10 through 0 to +10? And you don't have to share that if you don't want to, Jen. It's optional. And then notice what the emotion is around that transition. So you've got your first number, which is the general, when you think about that experience, where that is on the -10 through 0 to +10, and what the emotion is. And then think about where you feel that emotion in your body and what the body sensation is.
What comes to mind on the scale is, for the first one, is -3.
Thank you.
And then for my kind of experience, it just feels neutral.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So for you watching at home, just see how that felt. So then let's tap. So if you haven't done tapping before, it's like acupuncture for emotions without the use of needles. And the invitation is simply to do what we do and say what we say. And if you don't like it, then simply don't do it. But if you do tap along with us, you agree to take responsibility for your own well-being. So, and I know you know all of this, Jen, already. So side of the hand, even though. When I think about that transition. My rite of passage. From girl to maiden. It makes me feel this. And when you think about this, just think about what's there for you. And I notice where I feel that in my body. And I notice how it makes me feel. And I soothe and comfort myself.
And I soothe and comfort myself.
And even though when I think about that transition,
I
have these feelings. And if it could have been different, I would have preferred it to be like this. And when I say this, just think about how you would have liked it to be. And even if you've got a positive number there, what could have made it even more positive? So just be curious about that. And maybe you have no idea what could have made it easier and better, but just I'm opening out that possibility to start thinking about it. And I acknowledge whatever's there right now. With curiosity. And tapping through the points, starting with the top of the head. This rite of passage. This transition. From girl to maiden. Notice how it makes me feel. When I think about my own personal experience. And my daughter's going through that. She's changing from girl to maiden. And I want to be able to support her. In a harmonious way. So that she can step into being a maiden. With confidence. With serenity. With a strong sense of self. Embracing her femininity. In a healthy way. And if that's been challenging for me. It may be difficult for me to support her. To experience that for herself. And I'm acknowledging how that makes me feel. And I'm noticing where I feel it in my body. And I'm open to the possibility. Of having compassion for myself. And my daughter. And put your hands on your heart chakra, say transform, take a deep breath. So if this is your first experience of tapping, hopefully you might feel a little bit better. So just assessing the levels of your emotions when you think about your own transition on a scale from -10 through 0 to +10. What number is it now? Noticing what your emotion is around that again. And hopefully there'll be a more positive experience and you'll feel better. But sometimes actually one can feel a little bit worse. And the reason for that is because all of a sudden you're sitting here, you're actually focusing on the problem, which, you're usually one is rushing around one's life, busy, not thinking about it. And here we are bringing the emotions to the surface. So it could be that it feels a little bit more difficult, and that's okay. Just go back to the beginning of this recording and just repeat it as many times as you need to. And sometimes there'll be no change at all. And if that's the case, then please do type in the comments and let me know what's coming up for you and I can guide you to have a better experience. But if there's been no change, it's beyond what I can actually share with you in this video. But there are loads of things, as you know, Jen, that we can do to improve the results. But other things that can happen are sometimes there'll be tingling in the body, sometimes lightness or heaviness, or yawning or burping, or more energy or more tiredness. These are all signs that the energy is shifting and the tapping is working. So I'm just curious, Jen, from your experience, if you're willing to share anything that came up for you from that tapping, that little round.
Well, it's funny because it's like all the kind of things that, you know, for Tanisha, when she went through going from being a girl to being a maiden, there's like friends around, so it kind of, I had like the people that were around, the things that I did to kind of celebrate it, which was like, oh, making it a celebration, which is probably something that's different for previous generations, or maybe not, I don't know. But it's like a feeling of power for me. And you know, I have a memory when I thought I was starting my period, and I actually didn't, but it's a really good memory, and I felt really supported by my mum. So that kind of came up, you know, and instead of having the neutral feeling, it's like, no, that was a really kind of challenging but absolutely like hilarious, joyful, funny memory for me. So that came up. Yeah, but probably, I don't know, it's like a kind of anxiety feelings, but then that kind of mixes with feeling excited as well, what it is to, you know, feel to be like an adult-ish person. You're not quite an adult, are you? You're sort of, that's the kind of the challenge, is the transition.
Yeah.
Lots of things.
Yeah, thank you. So when you think about so it feels like when you think back now to your own personal rite of passage into maidenhood, some new positive memories have come up for you to help you feel more positive. That's what I'm understanding.
Yeah. So I went away with my mum to like Centre Parks or something, and I was so worried about starting my period when I was in the swimming pool, and my mum was like, no, that won't actually happen. And I just remember it, you know, having that time together and learning about, like, you know, sanitary towels and all the kind of things that support, you know, young women. I know there's lots more now. I mean, when Tanisha started her menarche, or whatever the official word is, I got her this celebration box that had all of these things, and it's like, oh, yeah. And I think having those feelings, you know, those experiences and that time with your mum, or with, you know, a guardian or a mum figure, that's almost like, that's the ceremony, isn't it? The ritual. And maybe some people have actual rituals as well. I know there's things that people can do. But yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely. And I think that's so beautiful what you did for your daughter. And I think so many mums don't do that kind of thing. I have like one memory of my own when so my period had already started, but like it didn't come again for ages. And we went on a school trip, and I wasn't expecting it, and I didn't have any kind of you know, anything with me. And it started, and I was so mortified, and I felt so unsupported. And I remember like telling the teacher, and then her buying me some tampons that I didn't know how to use. And it was just the most mortifying experience I could ever have imagined. And I was so sure that the whole class was like laughing at me or something. I mean, I have no idea. So that, you know,
Yeah.
was a really difficult experience. And when my daughter was, I can't remember how old she was, but I organised for a fantastic rite of passage for a group of mums and daughters, and it was so magical. So this lady from Australia, who unfortunately she's passed away, but she came over to England, and there must have been like about 10 mums and 10 daughters, and it was a whole, I think it was 1 or 2 days of these beautiful rituals. And of course, because my daughter's grown up with rituals, she was like, you know, I'm ritualed out. I don't
Yeah.
need.
That's it. Yeah.
So it was very interesting, but for me it was a beautiful, very special experience. And I remember bringing so I had a necklace from my grandmother, like, no, I think I had like 3 necklaces that would belong to my grandmother, and I wore one, my daughter wore one, and I gave one to my mum to wear, even though she wasn't coming to the ritual, so that the 3 of us were wearing the same necklace, which had belonged to my grandma. And it was like this coral kind of stone type thing. I don't know, but it was just such a nice feeling that this was like coming down the mother line.
And I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? With to be very sciencey, you have the eggs, don't you? That you're, oh, I can't think of what it, but I can see the image of like you're born with all your eggs in your ovaries. So like technically, we were all in each other's, you know, and that like having 3 generations feels like it's all that feminine, you know, lineage vibes.
Yeah, as soon as you mentioned like that whole, the egg that, you know, I just got tingles, because it's true, because the egg that created me was actually inside my grandma's womb, inside her fetus that is my mum.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just kind of mind-blowing, that thought. So yeah, very, very powerful, and a beautiful image to carry with us. So why don't we, if you're happy to do one more round of tapping, let's do something to really support our daughters in stepping into this new stage. Let's think about what qualities they might need. And, you know, if you're watching the replay, just type in the kind of qualities that you think you would like to give your daughter. So maybe confidence.
It's almost like the fertilite, like it's like that fertile ground feeling. So like earth energy.
Earth energy, beautiful. Kind of like grounded energy, are you thinking?
Yeah.
Grounded. Self-assured, maybe. What else comes?
Sunlight. I just had sunlight come through my door, so I'm thinking sunlight.
Oh,
you know, like a flower would have like the fertilizer, the light, water.
Oh, so this beautiful flower that's just opening.
Nourishment.
Nourishment. Oh, beautiful. So if we use that analogy of almost like a bud beginning to open. Oh, so beautiful. Thank you. Okay, shall we just tap on some ideas? And you can throw some ideas in if they come to you as we're tapping. Okay. So let's just start with this point. So even though
it may
have been challenging,
It may have been challenging.
Either in my own rite of passage
Either in my own rite of passage
into maidenhood.
into maidenhood. Yeah, see, my experience, the Centre Park thing, that's not when I started my period. So I can't even remember when I actually started my period. But I remember worrying about it. And tampons, like, and towels and all of it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it sounds like for you this isn't true, but I'm just saying for anyone else watching.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And even if it may be challenging for my daughter.
And even if it may be challenging for my daughter,
I'm open to the possibility.
I'm open to the possibility
Of infusing every cell, atom, and molecule.
Of infusing every cell, atom, and molecule.
Of my daughter.
Of my daughter.
With the energy of a beautiful flower bud beginning to open.
With the energy of a beautiful flower bud beginning to open.
And tapping through the points, top of the head. And I'm infusing this beautiful flower bud.
And I'm infusing this beautiful flower bud.
With an abundance of sunlight.
With an abundance of sunlight.
And beautiful fertile soil.
And beautiful fertile soil.
Enabling strong roots to grow.
Enabling strong roots to grow.
With an optimal amount of water.
With an optimal amount of water.
So that this beautiful flower bud.
So that this beautiful flower bud.
Can open at exactly the right time.
Can open at exactly the right time.
In exactly the right way.
In exactly the right way.
That is right for my daughter.
That is right for my daughter.
So that every petal that opens.
So that every petal that opens.
Is infused with an abundance of confidence.
Is infused with an abundance of confidence.
Feeling nourished.
Feeling nourished.
And grounded.
And grounded.
Confident in her femininity.
Confident in her femininity.
Self-assured.
Self-assured.
Compassionate.
Compassionate.
Trusting life.
Trusting life.
Walking lightly on the earth.
Walking lightly on the earth.
While fully grounded.
Or fully grounded.
What other qualities would you like to add to that?
Like acknowledgement of the earth. That's not quality though. Like it's maybe like unity. Maybe. Yeah.
Unity.
Unity.
Infusing trust.
Infusing trust.
And sending that into every cell of her body.
Sending that into every cell in her body.
And joy.
And joy.
And health.
And health.
Health in her body.
Health in her body.
Health in the beautiful flower bud unfolding.
Health in the beautiful flower bud unfolding.
Knowing and trusting.
Knowing and trusting.
That
You know, what comes to mind is like you can't have life without death, like the cycle of that, and that being, you know, cellular as well, cell cycles and stem cells, and you grow more, and yeah,
acknowledging the cycle of life.
acknowledging the cycle of life.
With every transition,
With every transition,
with every rite of passage,
with every rite of passage, you know,
there's a death and a rebirth.
there's a death and a rebirth.
Letting go of childhood
Letting go of childhood
while embracing the new.
while embracing the new.
Becoming a teenager.
Becoming a teenager.
Becoming a maiden.
Becoming a maiden.
And knowing and trusting.
And knowing and trusting.
That I, as her mother.
That I, as her mother.
Can hold that space.
Can hold that space.
With strength.
With strength.
Giving her the space she needs.
Giving her the space she needs.
To open joyfully.
To open joyfully.
Filled with magic and miracles.
Filled with magic and miracles.
And an abundance of love.
And an abundance of love.
And say transform and take a deep breath.
Transform.
So how are you doing?
Yeah, that's lovely. That that reminds me of the positive tapping one, the magic and miracles.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like to throw that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you've been watching this, please do share in the comments anything that's come up for you, any feedback, how you're feeling right now. So yeah, just thinking about your daughter and that rite of passage for yourself, for her. Any last thoughts from you, Jen, how you're feeling about that now?
It's like, it's parenting, isn't it? And it's, for me, it's been so powerful, and each kind of part unfolds, and you know, you think it's going to be easier, and it's not. But then there's sort of, you know, unexpected things that come up. I just love it. It's great. You know, I mean, this, yeah. So, yeah, it's brought me here. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for bringing this such an important topic, because I think it's something that, you know, often isn't really addressed. So it's really key, and there's a lot of material there that could be expanded on with the tapping. If, you know, that's something that you know, you watching has had a challenge with, I'm in, you know, you can reach out to me or Jen to work further with this kind of thing. And Jen, if people want to reach you, particularly around the connection hearts, how can they do that?
So the business is called Let's Connect and Feel Better. Yeah. So, or just put in my name and it should come up, the website.
And what's your website?
So the website's called Let's Connect and Feel Better. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And I've got the link in the comments below as well. So so do have a look at Jen's work. And thank you so much, Jen, for joining me and, you know, sharing everything that you have done around the book, about what you're doing, and then tapping with me. Really, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're
welcome. Thank you so much, and have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you.